pertinent issues as affects the NPP family. My name is Nana Dama. The full one is Nana Kofi Oponama, of course. But today, what are we really discussing? We're discussing the court case. We're taking a look at Let My Vote Count, among other issues. And you can also join the phone lines. We'll open the phone lines quite early today so that you can join this discussion and let us know what it is that you think, what your opinions are, and what you have to tell the leadership. I promise, as your humble servant, that I'll take your views across to the leadership of the party for them to be able to factor in your thoughts in whatever it is that you're asking us to do. But in the studios today, I have David Asante. King David, how are you, sir? An HR consultant as well as a former president of KNUST SRC. I must confess that he was the first SRC president I met when I was a first-year student at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And in those days, he used to walk around with the shoulders squared up and the head up high in the sky and all of that. I remember him exactly as that. But before we come into the studios to continue our discussions, we have Mr. Yabwabinga Samoa, who is a member of the NPP legal team, who will be called very soon to enable us, hear from him directly what is going on in the court case. A lot of commentary has been done about this matter, but really, what is the crux of the matter? What is the major point? What is the focus? And exactly, maybe a little bit of strategy, if he would have mercy on us and tell us exactly what is going on. But before we get to that point, King David, how are you, my brother?
I'm very well, my brother. Good evening to our very viewers, too.
Okay. I don't want to get into Let My Vote Count now. Let's talk about court case, your general impressions about it so far.
Well, thank you very much. If I am allowed, I think so far it's been good. Looking at the proceedings, and then this is one of a landmark case, a high-profile one. So naturally, one from the onset is tempted to think that the proceedings has the potential and the potency, of course, to bring the entire nation to a standstill. Especially the very first day the court sat and Ghanaians had the opportunity to be part of the process via live coverage on the major news outlets. You realize that you visited a few offices, and then the impression that people had was that kind of tensed mood. Being in the courtroom alone comes with its own phobia. Yeah. And then we're talking about the Supreme Court. And then we're talking about a case that has the potential of changing the presidency. So naturally, one would think that it has the potential of bringing the nation, the economy, and everything therein to a standstill, at least for a moment. And then the subsequent days, you realize that people got a little bit of control over what is really going on, and people are gradually, getting relaxed, and then the nervousness and then the kind of fear that gripped a few persons is gradually whittling down. Ghanaians are gradually embracing the process and getting to realize that we'll get to the end very soon.
Let's get to the lighter side of the politics. Today I had a very, very mischievous statement from somebody on Facebook. It had to do with his heirship, stuff like that. How have you found the entire creativity of a Ghanaian in moments like this? Memao Soft Scorpio, Memao Dumso, Memao Dr. Pink Sheet stuff. How have you found the entire thing?
It is interesting, my brother. For those of us who have been advocating for the pursuit of justice at the Supreme Court as the way forward in consolidating and deepening our democracy, right after the case was presented at the Supreme Court, we came together and said to ourselves that, well, we have been students of history. We've known over the past few years the countries that ignored the legal routine and the repercussion that the countries suffered thereof. It is unfortunate to realize that those countries have not fully recovered from the rippling effect of ignoring legal routes in dislodging power, but rather resorting to violence. So we said to ourselves, there is a need for us to come together to support the cause of the pursuit of justice at the Supreme Court. One, it is exciting to realize that right after the whistle was blown, a few persons thought the petitioners even didn't have a case, and that this case will not even fly at all. It was going to be thrown out of the courtroom and all that. Later on, they got to realize that there is a need for them to come on board. The NDC as a party did apply to join. Their application to join was accepted by the Supreme Court. Now, there are funny revelations that are popping out of the Supreme Court by virtue of the fact that Ghanaians are getting into the inside of the Supreme Court to know what is happening, so that no mischievous or propaganda outfits will be, imbibed with the responsibility of coming out to educate us. Now, what is happening is that the first and second respondents in this very landmark case have tacitly admitted there were errors in the 2012 election. For those of us who would not want to go into the merit of the case because of obvious reason, it is a clear indication that at least the petitioners have a case. It is so exciting and it's so gratifying for us as Let My Vote Count and the normal Ghanaian citizen who went to vote and for one reason or the other, he thinks his mandate has been subverted. It is exciting to hear a tacit admission from the first and second respondent that there were errors. The question is, will we continue as a state in this erroneous state? A country, are we going to sit and perpetually live in an erroneous state? Will errors finally determine who our president is in our country? These are the legitimacy issues that Ghanaians are perpetually going to rely on the Supreme Court for answers. Okay.
Now, you've already mentioned, and so let's go there. Let my vote count. First question, is this an MPP project?
Not at all. My brother, Abu Ramadan, my brother, Charles, Ousu, PPP, Abu Ramadan, CPP, Kabila, James Kwabena Bonfe, CPP, and then Atik Mohammed, PNC, and then our own good friend, Abua Papon, NDP. Those who have been following our activities over the past few months will agree with me that these are young Ghanaian politicians and learned gentlemen who believe in the cause of justice. And these names I have mentioned, naturally, you would agree with me, this is a collection of young men and women from all political divide, from all walks of political divide, PNC, CPP, and all that. It is not an MPP agenda. It is purely a group of like-minded Ghanaians who believe in the simple principle that for our democracy to be deepened, there is the need for us to go strictly by the democratic tenets, that is, rule of law. Evidenced in the fact that electoral disputes are always presented at the court for proper redress. There are countless number of examples that we can look up to for which we would have to say to ourselves that kudos, Ghanaians. We have come this far because those examples, awful ones of course, have taught us that there is a need for us to ignore violence. That is why whenever I have the opportunity on a platform like this to talk about Let My Vote Count, I do not miss the opportunity of congratulating the three gentlemen, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and then Jacob Ichebi Lamte. Of course, I have said a countless number of times that their action has really attracted international recognition and has really brought into being a beam of searchlight mounted on Ghana as a country and Ghanaians as a people. The whole world is watching us. This is Ghana. Successfully, they have had change over in government over the years. Now there is a major issue confronting the nation as electoral, dispute, and then they chose the legal route. So this is where Let My Vote Count take our inspiration from. That let us support this cause of pursuing justice at the Supreme Court, because the reverse is not exciting. It's very awful. And this is a move that would further consolidate and deepen our democracy as a nation.
Okay. Now, there are various theories about democracy and consolidation of democracy. Some say that when a government changes hands once, and others say that when a government changes hands twice, then a democracy has consolidated. By both processes, Ghana's democracy can be said to have been consolidated. However, Let My Vote Count. Is it Let My Vote Count, or it's Let Every Legal Vote Count? Or it is Let Every Vote Count? This has come up in court a couple of times.
Very well. It is interesting. Well, I did hear Tony later, the counsel for the first respondent, and well, he got it wrong. He said let every vote count. Well, we never had the opportunity to rectify that erroneous impression he had about the group. It is Let My Vote Count. And it's exciting again to state that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia also gave us another interesting dimension. He said not just every vote, but let every legal vote count. We are at the law court. We are at the Supreme Court. So we deal with legality. This is where we find ourselves as a state. We have traveled far in our democratic dispensation, and we have come to a point where we would all agree that propaganda will no longer sustain this economy. Propaganda will soon fall flat when it comes into contact with the laws of the land. This is where we are now. Let My Vote Count Alliance is a group which is only calling for legitimate votes to matter. We have had instances where people even misunderstand what we stand for. That, are your votes missing? What is the meaning of let my vote count when you are at the Supreme Court nullifying or seeking to nullify some votes? Now, the interpretation is that you did go to queue to vote or to cast your vote. I did same, he did same, in that order and in that manner. What we are trying to establish is the fact that the person I voted for, make sure my vote is duly counted for him. There are rules and regulations governing the entire election that we did have the previous time. Yeah. The rules were clean, the rules were clear. In all the instances where these rules were violated and then somebody voted and the votes were counted in favor of another person, there were countless number of examples. Let me cite a critical example like what happened in the Volta region. The parliamentary candidates that the NDP party presented, they were giving votes as though it was a computerized distribution. The parliamentary candidates were giving 200, 200, 200 across board. So you realize that Papa Kwesi Ndum, the presidential candidate for PPP, also granted an interview to an international magazine. And he said that from 1992, he's been involved in politics in Ghana and elections in Ghana. This is the election with the worst credibility. These are the issues we are talking about. That let the legal votes that we did cast matter. Let it count. Now, that is all.
Okay, now, to say that let the legal votes count means that you are saying that some way, somehow, some legal votes did not count. Can you explain to us? Because some people are confused, and it has come up in the Supreme Court several times. So that is to suggest respectfully that even the lawyers for the respondents are somehow confused as to how the process is or why we are claiming that the votes didn't count. What exactly is it? Is it that because illegal votes were also counted, that the potency of the valid votes have been reduced, or some votes is really indeed missing somewhere that we have to go and find?
As it stands now, it is gratifying again that the petitioners presenting polling stations numbering 11,138 thereabouts. Take a closer look at what happened in the courtroom today. The whole issue had to do with the fact that the third respondent was cross-examining the witness around the basic fact that you had agents at the police station who did sign the pink sheets. Therefore, the results were valid and are still valid. So you have no case. What we are saying is that the petitioners who have taken the matter to court, as it stands now, are seeking for the votes emerging from some 11,138 constituencies to be annulled. Now, our understanding of the process equally is derived from the petitioner's case they are pushing through at the Supreme Court. We no longer, or we're not going to run a contrary arrangement or case to what the petitioners themselves are pushing through, because our very existence is predicated on the fact that the petitioners have a case in court. So what we are saying is that the petitioners have raised issues of some police stations which recorded votes in excess. If 100 people register in a particular police station, and at the end of the day, you have over 120 votes or ballots counted, it beats logical reasoning. It beats statistical interpretation. So all we are saying is that we're not going to say anything contrary to that which the petitioners are pushing through at the Supreme Court. Our very argument is based and predicated on the fact of the petitioners who are saying, let some votes that were overly bloated be nullified. Let the votes that did defy the principles on which the elections were conducted, that is no verification, no vote, let those votes be annulled. So these are the foundation upon which we always lay our argument, that let these illegal votes be nullified, and then afterwards, let the legal votes be counted, because they are saying if 11,138 polling stations are finally annulled, then we're looking at the sitting president. His votes would whittle down to something around 35% and then 39.5 thereabout, and then that of Nanado, the petitioner, 59 thereabout. So it is simple. That means if there is an individual in this country who did vote legitimately for Nanado, his vote has not yet been counted. So we did not originally coin the name "Let My Vote Count" to stand for that numerical representation that it has not been counted. No, what we mean is that let it matter. The man I voted for him, let it be counted for him. So when these petitions are upheld by the Supreme Court, and then one part of the beam balance will go down and the other will shoot up, and then there will be equity and there will be justice, so that the one I voted for will eventually have my vote counted for him. So as it stands now, Ghana has a president who was erroneously sworn in and declared president, as per the first and second respondent answers.
Okay. Now, I'll take a break at this moment, and when I come back, we can consider more of these discussions, and we'll be joined by another panelist. But before we go for this break, think about this. Today, the West African Examination Council is saying that they want to cancel some papers that have been written by students. But the argument of the first, second, and third respondents on polling stations can come into play. We can also argue that because the West African Examination Council had invigilators at the various at the various places, and also because they were supposed to protect the integrity of these papers, they have no right whatsoever to cancel those papers. Is that where we want to go as a nation? I'll take a break now. Welcome back to Minority Caucus. I've been joined in the studios by Abu Ramadan. Are you still the PNT youth organizer?
Have you had any communication to the contrary?
I'm just saying, but welcome, Abu.
Thank you very much, my
brother. Nice to have you here.
Nice meeting you.
Let's come back. You're a member of Let My Vote Count. Now, I was just asking a question. Is it an MPP grouping? What exactly is it? He's answered, but I want to know your opinion.
Probably if it was an MPP grouping, you wouldn't have found me being part of it. It's a call to duty for every Ghanaian. It's a call to the fact that we've had an election continuously for the last 20 years of our democratic history. We've had one person organizing an election for us, one body organizing an election for us, and we've never had a successful election since 1992. If you remember 1992, the stolen verdict. In 1996, the issues President Kufuor raised over the elections. In 2000, the issues President Rawlings himself raised as sitting president. Then in 2004, the issues the Professor Mills raised and his refusal to attend the swearing-in of President Kufuor in 2005. In 2008, the same. In 2012. So it is a call to duty. It is a call for every Ghanaian to rally around and make sure that we have electoral reforms. Make sure that when we cast our ballot on December 7th, whoever we vote for should be reflected in the final declaration. Okay. So it's not a party thing.
All right. I have Mr. Yabo Asamoah on the line. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chief.
How are we doing, Chief?
Very well.
Okay, so you're a member of the NPP legal team. A lot of people want to hear the opinions of the NPP legal team as to what has happened in court so far. What would you say to that?
Thank you very much for this call and the opportunity to speak to your valued audience. First of all, clearly the process of cross-examination is still going on. There was a legal question about whether or not where two different parties swear to one affidavit, different lawyers can examine their opponent, and which is what Mr. Philip Addison, on the part of the petitioners, started to make an application about. Because legally, it may not be equitable for two different lawyers who have signed one affidavit and have subscribed to the same set of evidence to cross-examine separately on the same matter. So you also, Mr. Addison, make an objection to Mr. Chachukata cross-examining, since he's on a joint affidavit with the president's lawyer. And the president's lawyer has cross-examined extensively. Unfortunately, before Mr. Addison could end, the president of the court had swiftly moved in to disable him, even though Mr. Addison's application had not been concluded, including the authorities he intended to cite. But in spite of that misfortune, as it were, in terms of the president stopping it, I think it turned out to be a huge blessing. Because we find out that if we had not let Mr. Chachukata cross-examine, this bloated image of something wonderful and huge that was going to happen would have persisted and allowed the propagandists a field day. But it turns out Mr. Chikata has nothing up his sleeve. Having been allowed to speak, the myth is now broken. The bubble about the whiskey has burst. Because all Mr. Chikata has done throughout the day is try to rake over the old codes, the cold lunch left over by Mr. Lito in terms of style and substance. First of all, let me deal with the style. Here is Mr. Chikata asking the same question over and over again and presenting some pink sheets to the petitioner to review. The same thing Mr. Lito did for over 4 days, which didn't get him anywhere because it only allowed the petitioner, the witness, the second petitioner, to reaffirm his story. Secondly, what is the substance of what Mr. Chikata is driving at? It's on two levels. One, that polling agents were there, and that binds the political party to the results. I'm afraid that is the most ridiculous proposition I've ever heard as far as the powers of the Electoral Commission are concerned. Because you see, the Electoral Commission is an independent body. It is not under the direction and guidance of anybody. And polling stations, polling agents sent to polling stations do not have any authority to order the Electoral Commission about in terms of how it does its work and what the Electoral Commission deems to be valid and not valid. Indeed, the CI-75, on which Mr. Chikata depended, and which he asked the second petitioner witness to read at length, begins with may. Political parties may appoint agents. And for everybody, strike law, that may simply means may. It means you do not necessarily have to appoint agents. So question, assuming a party chooses not to appoint an agent, does that mean that the election will not carry on? In the election we've just had, did all the 8 candidates have polling agents at the place? And if the powers that Mr. Chikata is arrogating to those agents are supposed to be valid, and indeed agents have authority over the EC, then how come the EC declared the results without making sure that all polling agents of all 8 candidates in every polling station had signed the results? So going the agent way is backing up the wrong tree. And essentially, Dr. Baumia made it very clear that whatever an agent signs does not mean that the EC is absolved of responsibility for what happens at the polling station. This is the presiding officer's signature, which certifies what is on the pink sheet. And whatever is on the pink sheet, if it's unlawful, remains unlawful. So then you go to the second leg of the argument, that people have a constitutional right to vote. And therefore, if people have voted in exercise of that right, then it cannot be cancelled. And I'll respond quickly. Have you noticed today that the WAEC has cancelled some results?
We've said
of
this.
The ongoing West Africa examination?
Yes, we have.
Hello?
Yeah, we have. Hello?
You have?
Yeah, we have.
Now, is WAEC telling us that all those people cheated? WAEC cannot be telling us that they all cheated. WAEC is saying that because they suspect that the documents leaked to some extent, everybody else, most of whom were innocent, have suffered for it. And that's exactly what is happening in this poll. The election is a creature of law. The Electoral Commission is mandated to administratively work to deliver the constitutional provision for voting by all through registration of people. And therefore, nobody wakes up in the morning on election day and takes their birth certificate and their passport or driving license or NHIS card to go and vote at a polling station. It doesn't happen. You have to be on a register. And when you're on a register, you have to verify that it is you. It is one long process. And no part of that process can be truncated according to the law. Because that is the rules that the Electoral Commission, which has the electoral authority, the constitutional authority to design the rules, made. And in any event, if after 5 elections, with the experience of this Electoral Commission, this Electoral Commission with all that experience cannot guarantee us a clean election, then the law that they themselves made is laughable. Because the law says a political party may appoint an agent. So assuming a political party doesn't appoint an agent, is the Electoral Commission going to do its work or not? The Electoral Commission must do its work, with or without agents. And that is why the Constitution gives them the power. That is why the Constitution gives them operational independence. That is why the Constitution gives them lots of money and does not supervise how they spend that money. In order to be a fair, uninterested, honest broker between the parties, the Electoral Commission cannot push its errors, so-called errors, onto the party. So they go back to the old little argument about errors. What is an error? Is there something like an innocent error? Very well. Assuming it is innocent. What is the extent of the innocent error? Does it impact the results? That is the bottom line question. Anything that impacts the results is not acceptable, be it in earnest or in error. And in any event, if you follow Mr. Chikate's argument, how can several hundred different officers in different polling stations fill the same wrong boxes regularly all the time? It is a pattern. It is a pattern. If it was innocent, the filling of the form would have shown up different mistakes at different places. But this is a case where all the forms where there was deliberate overvoting and dual serial numbers have the same pattern where they are trying to swerve the register and put in figures in boxes where they ought not to be. The same style of boxes. So today, what we have seen is that Mr. Chikata has nothing new to offer. Today, what we have seen is that Mr. Chikata is warming over the leftover remains of Mr. Tony Litto's lunch, as it were, in terms of what Mr. Tony Litto left undone. But really, nothing new, because it is the same repetition on the two recognized lines they are approaching, which is agent responsibility and administrative errors. None of it absolves the Electoral Commission of its duty to conduct a free, fair, credible, violence-free election.
A straightforward question. So, are we on course?
Are we
on course?
Extremely so. We are. In fact, today, if I were the NDC team or the president's lawyer or indeed the EC, I would be sad, because their persistence in repeating the same old questions that Mr. Litto asked has ensured that Dr. Bawumia is able to repeat himself and affirm even more strongly some of the things he has said previously. You should note that none of those lawyers has been able to say that those things didn't happen. It's a very critical point. None of those lawyers have said that the things Dr. Bawumia is alleging didn't happen. All they are trying to say is that they happened innocently. And that is not enough to stop the court from deciding. That if Mr. Chikata had come in and had categorically stated that there was no overvoting, that there was no voting without verification, that there were no serial numbers used by the Electoral Commission, that the Electoral Commission signed all its documents, then I would be able to say that they had impugned Dr. Bawumia's credibility and damaged his case. But as it stands, all they are pushing is excuses for the things that happened. And I'm afraid, in terms of law, the excuses will not help them.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Yabo Abingasamo. We hope that we'll come to you again on Wednesday for a further brief. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Now, let's come back to our studio and talk to our studio guests. You've heard the legal team, Abu. So, really, what are your impressions about what happened in court today and what has been happening over a long while?
I think so far, as YB has said, really the legal team is on course, considering the fact that Bawumia has proven to be, I will call him a notorious witness, who doesn't seem to waver on the position, based on the fact that he knows what he's talking about and he's not lying to the court. By now, if he was a liar, by now he would have been exposed. But most importantly, today what happened in court was like I can equate it to a theater. Going to a theater to watch a performance, and it happens just the way you expect it to happen. When you looked at sort of, because when you look at the EC lawyer, what's he called?
James Koshi
Aidan. His last but one question was, I put it to you, I suggest to you that based on the registrations, based on the voters register, 70,000 people had FOs, as opposed to vote without verification. The Bawumia said not the case. And he gave the breakdown region by region. After that, he said, I rest my case. Then, interestingly, when Chachu started, he started on that premise. So as if to say the Electoral Commission had paved the way for him, and he comes in with pink sheets and says, I'm challenging you based on a pink sheet. But interestingly, I thought Chachu Chikata was going to tell us that all the allegations made by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia were false. It never happened. Just the way YB said. But consistently, he keeps admitting himself that it happened, but there were errors. There were errors just in terms of placement.
You think we should change the name of the Electoral Commission to the Error Commission?
The suggestion has gone wide, and I think it is about time, as part of Ghanaians' comical activities or comical nature. It is just fine for us to call the Electoral Commission the Error Commission. But really,
it's still easy anyway.
Yeah, but really, one important point that Justice Atubuga made in court today, with regards to the answer Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia gave when Chachu asked him the question about, does he think, based on the concerns raised by the Northern Regional House of Chiefs, the President of the House of Chiefs and some other people, based on even that concerns, should they still nullify the votes of those people? And the answer Bawumia gave, Chachu kept on pushing, wanting to hear a layman's answer so that he can get away. But Atubuga said, look, he said, notwithstanding that particular concern, the most important thing is the law. What does the law say? The law doesn't have feeling as to how you feel about it or not. Because every law has got its bad side. Because it has a bad side, so we shouldn't implement the law. Is that what you are saying? Because the law has got a bad side, we shouldn't implement it? So he said no. Regardless of those concerns, what does the law say? Bottom line. And I think this is I would call it a victory, but a sign that really the judges are looking out for certain pertinent things that will help them make up their minds. And Bawumia is delivering that. I can't wait to see Dr. Kojo Afarijan sit in that chair.
Look, I have a doubt as to whether he take the chair himself or not.
No, but the Supreme Court should be able to force him to sit in that chair as the returning officer.
His argument would be that it's the institution that has been sued. I've seen that. I picked up indications it may be Mr. Amadou Sule.
But if Amadou Sule is sitting, that is serving us breakfast during lunch. That is just like serving us breakfast during lunch. We want to see Dr. Kojo Afarijan sitting in that hot seat.
Others will argue that he should have been Nana Akufo-Addo instead of Dr. Bawumia.
You don't need Nana Akufo-Addo. In his case, you don't need him to sit there. We are dealing with the returning officer or the Electoral Commission, the institution that conducted the elections. So if we are dealing with the institution, we are dealing with the returning officer. Why is Bawumia raising issues with returning officers not signing pink sheets, the declaration sheets? Because the Constitution says they need to sign for the results to be legitimate, for it to be declared. So the returning officer, who will finally send his signature on any document that will be announced officially as the results of the election, we need him to come and speak to the matter. Because on what basis did he sign the documents in front of him when he was not in the polling stations? On what basis did he sign the pink sheets that were brought before him? Did he do due diligence? At a certain point when he took the decision to cancel certain votes in certain polling stations, at that time, what informed the decision? Now, at the time he was signing the final results, what informed his decision? I hope Mr. Richard Addison and Co. would push Philip Addison, would push the Supreme Court to get Dr. Kojo Afarijan to sit in that chair. And trust me, after his testimony, the matter would have been determined already. It will have no, look, Asedun Keita will have no bearing on this matter. Neither will his testimony, neither will the 3,000 or 72,000 witnesses.
You make no mistake, and if he does, we should call him a blockhead.
Let's leave that one for that time, because I know certainly he will fumble, because there are certain questions he can't answer. Whilst the Electoral Commission was serious about setting up the rules and regulations, he was busy doing funka games. He can't answer all the questions. He shouldn't behave as if he has the answer to every question that will be asked. So I said in his testimony, I would see it more like just coming to, because he must be in the witness box. Yeah, more off. But the real person, Ghanaians, who would convince Ghanaians as to whether we have a good case or a bad case, will be the Electoral Commission. So let's wait for Dr. Kojo Afarijan to sit in that dock. And the doubting Thomases will then come back home and see that truly there's some substance in the petition that has been sent before the courts.
Let's wait for Dr. Kudwa Farajan to take the chair. That's what Abu Ramadan has to say. I'll take a break now. And then when I come back, I'll open the phone lines. Tell me what it is that you have to say. Welcome back to Minority Caucus. So you can join this discussion using the number 030-2211-701-4. 030-2211-701-4. And as usual, the text lines remain 1760, all networks. 1760, all networks. I'm waiting for your call. But David, there's been this argument that the live telecast of the Supreme Court proceedings should stop because it is affecting productivity in this country. I've heard that LMVCA has issued a statement to that effect. What do you think on that?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. It's exciting and then gratifying again to know that revelations popping up of the Supreme Court as first-hand information because we have access to the inside of the court. I remember a gentleman, Gabi Asorochodakon, who is the executive director of the Dankwa Institute, was the first person to push through this petition to the Supreme Court for live telecast, which finally was upheld. That is where we are now. Productivity. I am speaking from an HR perspective.
You have to hold on a little bit for me because my colleagues are threatening to break my neck. Masaudu, welcome.
Good evening, Nana.
Good evening, Chief.
Masaud Amereziki calling from Tetima.
Okay.
Nana, thank you very excellently for the good work done. Nana, the credibility of not one man in NDC alone, the credibility of entire NDC must be put into question. Nana, why did I say that? We were in Ghana here. We're in Ghana here when I said Unketia, say any idiot can go to court, saying that NPP don't have a case. And today, I heard Atudaji comment on propaganda. And you know, God has saved us. God has saved us, and this court has come into telecast. Everybody is seeing it. We saw what is happening in court. We saw the so-called Chachuti Tata, a lawyer, whom Dr. Bawume is not a lawyer, but the question that Dr. Bawume is answering and the question that he's giving Chachuti Tata know that he's really talking with somebody who have a great case, who brought it to court, and he has hope of winning that case.
Thank you very much, Masaudu. I would have to take Kingsley now. Kingsley, how are you doing?
I'm great.
You have the floor.
I think, mine is more or less of a question that I would like to ask, because clearly we are seeing the first respondents lawyers, and that of the NDC, showing things in which Nanado clearly has a fewer number of votes. And I want to know, and by extension, I'm asking also the petitioners, the lawyers of the petitioners, to clearly portray to us in their cross-examination of the EC and that of Johnson Asiedu in Ketia, to show us places where Nanado has huge number of votes, and yet they are putting it in the petition. I think by then you would be doing much of a greater education to all of us as to what you are pushing forward. Is it because Nanado has lower votes, that is why those cases are there, or it is because you seek to protect
just to briefly answer you, Kingsley, the real matter is that, if you realize what we are saying is that those irregularities went to the benefit of the president, John Dramani Mahama. Now, if you aggregate all those votes in all those areas, there's a very small percentage of those polling stations where Nana Akufo-Addo actually did win. I think it's less than 1%. And we are talking about the places where these irregularities have actually occurred. There are no more than about 1% of the votes when Nana Akufo-Addo won in those areas that we are challenging. This is why we have come to the conclusion that those irregularities actually favored one person, and one person only in this election. That is the President John Dramani Mahama. Do you understand my point?
Yeah, I think we will be looking clearly forward to seeing that much more clearer when the lawyers of the petitioners take their time.
Okay, thank you very much. Mohammed, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And I thank you for that. I'm a very grateful citizen.
Okay, I think that line is very bad, and so it's dropped. Musa, welcome. Hello? I'm sorry, but I can hardly hear you, so I'll have to move on to my next caller. Musa, welcome. Hello, Musa. Okay, so back to you, David. You're making a point about... But again, I have another call on the line. Nab, how are you doing?
I'm fine, sir.
Okay, you have the floor.
And then how are you doing?
By His grace, Chief.
I'll come down to my local language so that
No
I
problem.
can express myself more.
Have a field day.
And I'm very ambitious. We can watch imagine. And then about the include. So I can't tell them to file the presidential nomination. And after I done all this stuff, I know people who say, oh yeah, clerical errors, administration error. And so very ambitious that said, them error no to disqualify will be home 1 year there. Let's say them error now so to maybe we need that. And I'm the kind of financial way or the number of budget you.
Okay.
That's me.
Thank you very much. His question was that if Nana Konadu Agyemang-Rawlings was actually disqualified based on whether clerical or transposition errors or omissions, then is it not, very clear that the Supreme Court should uphold the petition of the petitioners? But hello, hello, Emmanuel. Hello, Emmanuel. Okay. So that's it. Let's get back to the discussion. I was asking you that productivity makes. Some people are arguing that we should stop the live telecast of the Supreme Court proceedings because it affects productivity. Let my vote count is against that stand. What do you think? Yeah. Why? Let me put the question.
Well, you would agree with me. If we really want to look at what is slowing down productivity in the country, one, we should look at bad governance. The whole idea of the NDC's very existence and holding on to power. Bad governance. There is a natural likelihood and the tendency that bad governance will spill over to the various sectors of the economy. If you run an industry, like what happens in Tema, where I live, and then you have erratic power supply, okay, where power goes off for almost 6 hours, and then you need to shut down your system and then buy diesel to run your factory. Naturally, you're going to compel to lay off a few staff. The level of production would also whittle down. At the end of the day, these are the reasons why productivity has slowed down over the past 4 months the president assumed office. It has very little to do with the Supreme Court hearing. Now, basically, if you go to an office only to find staff who originally are supposed to be at desk working, glued to their TV set, watching and listening to what is happening and then emerging from the Supreme Court, the clearest interpretation is that Ghanaians are interested in what is happening in the Supreme Court because their mandate has been stolen.
Okay, now let me box in Abu Ramadan. Abu, you are also a member of AFAC. What's happening with the AFAC demonstration? I'm hearing the police says no demonstration until after the election petition. What are you going to do about it?
That is the viewpoint of Madam Rose Biatiga. You see, Rose has steadily taking up a certain posturing since President Mills assumed office in 2009. It's very unfortunate. Some people outside brand her as the NDC women's organizer within the police service. It is you see, it is perceptional based on the way she conducts herself. She doesn't come across to certain individuals as somebody who does her things professionally as a professional, but does her things based on her political interest. But notwithstanding that, we are saying that tomorrow we are meeting with the police regional command. We're going to sit down with them at 9 a.m. Whatever comes out of that meeting will determine what happens on Friday, because our new date was supposed to have the demonstration on Friday. But if that meeting is inconclusive as to, with regards to the fact that they won't allow us to, they won't be there to protect us, not they allowing us to go, but they won't be there to protect us, then we have the options we've made available to ourselves. First and foremost, we've prompted our lawyers to be on standby. Paperwork has already been done. We are waiting a meeting tomorrow to see what needs to be added and what not needs to be added. If not, on Friday we'll still embark on the demonstration without the police. Okay. So it is one of the two.
An injunction again.
So we are also going to court to get an injunction. So let's get two injunctions, one nullifying the other. So it is an issue of overvoting. You understand? It becomes an issue of overvoting between ourselves and the police. But whatever it is either we are going to court or we are going to embark on the demonstration on Friday without the police. It's one of the two.
Closing comments, David. 30 seconds.
I believe this nation is governed purely by constitution. And I do not ever think a section of this constitution over the past 4 months has been altered. Madame Rusbio Atinga coming out to tell us that all demonstrations have been banned is trying to subvert the constitution. It's illegal, it's unconstitutional, and it's dictatorial.
Considering that Friday, the court is not even set.
Can you imagine?
On
We
Friday.
have close to 25,000 police personnel. Ever since live
than
telecast
100.
started streaming from the Supreme Court, the numbers at the police over at the Supreme Court has whittled down drastically. So the point is that for demonstration, it is our civil right, it's our constitutional right. As and when we want to have it, we'll only notify the police and we'll go ahead and have it.
Okay.
Nana?
Yes, sir.
As my brother said, live telecast is not affecting productivity. If this is the price we must pay as a country to maintain and sustain our democracy, let's pay the price. But why do I say it is not the cause of our productivity? If civil servants are failing to work because they have a serious interest in the matter, president or government should issue an instruction that from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m., no government office should put on its TV and tune into the court case. Put it on Cartoon Network and allow the civil servants to be watching cartoons whilst the court case is going on. Because that is the only sector government can control. Okay. And aside that, I beg John Dramani Mahama, this is the price we're going to pay. Chief Justice, I beg you, this is the price we're going to pay to sustain our democracy. Nobody told us that democracy is so cheap that you walk into any market and you find it's a very expensive commodity. And if we've decided to go that way, let us get ready to pay the high price for it.
Let us get ready to pay the high price for it. My name is Nana Kofi Damo. I have had this discussion with Mr. David Boateng Asante, spokesperson for the Let My Vote Count Alliance, and Abu Ramadan of AFHAC, as well as the Let My Vote Count Alliance. For me, what I have to tell you is that we have only one Ghana. In all that we do, let's consider peace first. And then the Ghana police, please, let's see some seriousness. Good night.